It's crazy to think that in Five Nights at Freddy's lengthy roster of characters, one that contains a sadistic murderer, a pack of bullies, a bunch of manipulative robots, Aunt Jane, and Balloon Boy, that one of the series' most divisive characters is a child. And no, I do not mean Balloon Boy. I'm talking about Gregory, a character who since the release of Security Breach has been met with a very lukewarm, mixed reception. One that only worsened with time in the following years and additional roles he took on. And not just because of people not liking his character. That's one thing. You don't like him because he gets bratty, that's absolutely fair. But I have seen in the past genuine takes that believe that not only was Gregory at fault for many things, but that if he hadn't been in the picture at all, that the Pizzaplex would have been fine, and that he solely is to blame for the Glamrocks predicament and the current state of the Pizzaplex, Vanny, Glitch Trap, and missing folks aside. Numerous takes, that he had no right to shatter the Glamrocks, that he should have stayed in the daycare, that he should have just hidden, that he should have just used a Fazwrench to fix everyone, that because he was willing to turn the staff bots against Vanny, that he is a murderer. And yes, specifically when I saw that comment that came out not long after Security Breach, it said that Gregory was a murderer because of the disassembled ending. This was way before Ruin. And in a shocking turn of events, I, who have been quite critical of Fnaf characters in the past, am going to be coming to Gregory's defense here. I will not only be justifying many of Gregory's decisions, and replacing the blame, but I will also be making a bold defense that Gregory's current role as this ne'er-do-well might have been inspired by his initial reactions post-Security Breach. So, I am blaming you for this. You know who you are. Obviously I'm kidding, but still, let's get to it. Starting with Gregory himself. Gregory is a boy who gets stuck at the Pizzaplex in Security Breach, and must team up with Glamrock Freddy to survive the night and escape the dancing rabbit lady, Vanny, and Freddy's malfunctioning bandmates who are under her control. As far as the games are concerned, we don't know anything about how Gregory got to the Pizzaplex or what happened before the game opens, where he is hiding in Freddy. The books say a bit, but sticking squarely to the game's canon, we don't know. The only thing we do know is that before the games began, he had a run-in with Vanessa that ended badly.
I don't know who she is, but she's trying to get me.
Or, as he says in the original line, she's going to kill me. When the game starts out, Gregory is a pretty moody kid for understandable reasons. He can be snippy and bratty, getting easily frustrated with Freddy's roundabout way of getting him through the Pizzaplex, occasionally snapping at him. However, throughout the course of the game, Freddy and Gregory become genuine friends, and by the end he truly cares about Freddy, which we'll get into further. But Gregory's more abrasive side didn't win him any favors from the audience, acting more like a realistic kid than an enjoyable kid character. But a part of Gregory's personality that I rarely see brought up is his compassion and ability to forgive. Yes, Gregory is compassionate. When given the opportunity to escape the Pizzaplex, he stays behind, not just because of Freddy, but because he's afraid Vanny will kidnap other kids, which she will. He comforts Cassie on her special day, or at some point, and most importantly, when given the option to get revenge on Vanny, or at least defend himself, he goes out of his way to not only rescue her, but then befriend her. This is usually overlooked due to him breaking the Glamrocks and being angry with them, saying,
"All they've done all night is try to hurt me." They get what they deserve.
Something I should note that he says very early into the story, before any of them actually get shattered. This has given the impression that Gregory is this merciless monster who slays innocent, lovable mascots, but that is not the case. I think that this line is somewhat misleading. It is taken as like a murderer plotting revenge, like William Afton planning on axing all of Charlie's friends. But that's not what this is. Why? They've been chasing me all night. And get what they deserve. That's an angry kid who has every right to be upset, saying what comes to mind. Remember, at that point, he had been being chased by Chica, Monty, and Roxy for hours.
Lost boy over here.
You really think we won't find you? Give up.
Sneak away, little coward. You are nothing.
And has already been knocked out by Vanessa and chased by Vanny. Gregory has the right to be grumpy. And I think the biggest problem here is because of the major story cuts the security breach. Normally I don't take cut content into huge consideration. Okay, maybe that's not entirely correct. Normally, unless it's something juicy. And there's nothing juicier than the entire third act of Security Breach's story getting cut due to time constraints. Basically, in the cut third act, which we know about through cut voice lines, the Glamrocks would have torn Freddy apart in front of Gregory, and then Freddy would have become possessed and started hunting Gregory, likely in Fazwrench from the remains of the story left behind, and from the somewhat unfinished Vanny boss fight there. Here's some of the lines.
Leave him alone!
Gregory, run! Do not look back. Do not watch. Chica, Roxy, Monty, do not listen. Resist her. Please. You do not want to do this.
Disassemble, Freddy.
No. Stop. No. Please.
Freddy! No!
Where are you going? Come back. I thought we were friends. Superstar Gregory. Where are you? Why do you hide?
Here's some hidden pictures of the models in the files, and here's the unused Shattered Freddy model, who still appears as Broken Freddy in the disassembled ending. So there doesn't have to be much speculation here. We can at least see the skeleton of what would have happened. This whole scene is very important because not only does it complete Gregory's character arc, but it solidifies his bond with Freddy and portrays the true danger of the Glamrocks as they turn against one of their own bandmates and rip him to shreds, somewhat shaking that image of them being totally innocent and harmless. And shaking Freddy's image of them, perhaps. And yes, there was supposed to be a character arc where Gregory goes from being this frustrated kid who just wants out of the Pizzaplex to wanting to stop Vanny and save anyone else from the same fate. And that is almost still in the game because that's why Gregory stays behind. With the disappearances line, even though they were never brought up before this moment.
Freddy, if I leave now, nothing will change, will it? There will be more disappearances.
Gregory was supposed to grow from his bratty beginnings to have this bond with Freddy, only to have Freddy turn against him by someone else's hand, leading to a tragic ending that Fnaf isn't typically known for. So we have an unfinished story and a character who only had the beginnings and parts of the end of his character arc, not allowing the viewer to truly bond with him, and also not allowing us to see him grow. But moving on, I have also seen folks say that Gregory is using Freddy, since Freddy is reluctant to harm his bandmates. But I am here to inform you that this is not the case. First of all, Freddy is the one constantly alluding to Gregory taking care of his bandmates, nudging him to go into their attractions as he specifically does with Roxy Raceway. At one point, Gregory reads a note about Monty falling off of the catwalks, and then that gives Freddy an idea on how to handle Monty.
Gregory, I do not mean to be intrusive, but I read that message that you found in the security office. There may be a chance to stop Monty from hunting you.
Oh yeah, Freddy totally didn't want to hurt his bandmates.
Perhaps you can find some clues on how to deal with Roxy while you are there.
Not at all. He had no clue about it. And I think this too has to deal with the cut content. There's a weird scene in the middle of the game where an injured Freddy lures Gregory to Roxy's Raceway's unfinished area, but there's no reason for him to be there. And he claims Gregory disappeared when he was taken by Vanessa. Gregory would have disappeared in the basement, and for some reason Freddy was just over here in Roxy Raceway. Then, even though his battery is too depleted to move, he gets up and rushes to help Gregory, getting a second wind. He then tells Gregory to use a Showtime tape that is either really old, it doesn't look it, or Gregory finds something really old that we don't see, or this is also a line that's not supposed to be here. Yeah, there's a likely possibility that this was all involved in Freddy's cut arc, that he was being controlled already, but even if that's no longer the case, he's not totally innocent. And we know this because he tells Gregory to kill Vanny. He says,
"Get to the Fazwrench booth. Use the security desk. Turn them against Vanny."
he was just disassembled by Vanny. He knows what they will do, and he seems to know that she is a human. Now, surely this is just to protect Gregory, but this means it is by Gregory's own volition that he goes against Freddy's command to save Vanny instead. Freddy might encourage Gregory to approach Vanessa later on in the ending, but it was Freddy who also told him to turn against Vanny, knowing exactly what would happen if he did. Something that aligns with him accidentally suggesting Gregory deal with his bandmates. Not to mention that all of this would have been a non-problem if Freddy, who wasn't really doing anything, got Gregory to an actual safe location or spent more time watching him. I get that he needs to charge, but Freddy barely watches Gregory. He often misleads him too. Are you telling me that Freddy, who is scared of the daycare attendant and is very aware of the moon being a threat, thought it was a good idea to send Gregory into the daycare alone?
When that happens, the lights go out. And when that happens, the daycare attendant is free to roam the building. It will find you.
Did he not consider that this might be a problem? And Freddy makes a lot of decisions like this. So Gregory taking steps to protect himself and not just relying on Freddy absolutely makes sense. Especially since Freddy runs to get milk every 5 seconds and only comes back when he's beeped, and only in certain locations. And as for Gregory not caring about Freddy, that's not true as well. Yes, Gregory is initially snippy with Freddy, but he does form a bond with him. Even when not using the cut story, we see in every ending that Gregory cares about Freddy. He doesn't want to leave him in the Pizzaplex, and in the van ending he actually manages to take him and then jumpstarts him when he runs out of power. In the disassembled ending, he screams for him and cries when he shuts down. In the Burn Trap ending, the two run away together and team up to fight Burn Trap. And in the Saving Vanny ending, Gregory takes Freddy's head, fixes it up at the arcade, and takes him with him when he leaves the Pizzaplex. And I think there's a possibility that he fixes him up further afterwards, or someone else does. And even if all of these endings aren't real, being just drawings from Gregory, I think that at least shows how he feels about Freddy, where he makes all of these endings where Freddy is either being cool or saving the day, or them escaping the Pizzaplex together. It's clear that Gregory does bond with Freddy. Just because he doesn't tell him about exactly what happens to his bandmates doesn't change that. In fact, honestly, in a game that throws jokes in the dialogue every 2 seconds, I don't exactly think that these were supposed to be taken too seriously. Or, on the contrary, it could be that Gregory is afraid Freddy will turn against him if he knew the truth, and in this situation, having his only friend turn against him would be very dangerous, so I can understand why he would basically sugarcoat what happened. But speaking of which, let's move on to the Glamrocks. Now, the defense of the Glamrocks usually falls into 2 trains of thought from what I've seen. Either A, Gregory didn't need to shatter them, or sometimes accompanied with that the Glamrocks weren't actually going to hurt him, and B, the Glamrocks were possessed by Glitchtrap's influence and thus they too were victims. The idea that Gregory didn't need to shatter them may hold some merit, but is sort of weakened by 2 factors. The fact that the animatronics dog him everywhere throughout the Pizzaplex, and again that Freddy is constantly nudging him to go confront his bandmates. And yes, Gregory does take their parts to use on Freddy, but they are robots. They can be rebuilt. It's not like killing them. When Gregory talks about taking parts from them, he doesn't frame it like he's killing them and looting the body. It's more framed like a video game. Beat up the boss and take the upgrade. It might be selfish, but I don't blame him for thinking like this when these robots are chasing him. And saying things like this.
Nobody will miss you.
And this also applies to the Glamrocks being possessed reasoning, which, if you think about it, only backs up Gregory's decision to shatter them since they aren't thinking straight but are just vessels for Glitchtrap's influence, and we know he loves to play with his food. Remember, the only reason Freddy didn't do the same is because he was running in safe mode, something that is followed up later in the series, with safe mode Roxy and Eclipse becoming more docile. Sure, it does make us feel bad for the animatronics that they could all be like Freddy and they don't want to do this, but that doesn't change that they were doing it. 9 missing people so far. They can and will kill. We're sort of blinded by our love for these characters. They have very distinct personalities, and they do obviously feel emotions such as pain and suffering. But they would have absolutely killed Gregory. Or at least taken him to Vanny, who would have killed him. And I quote,
Nobody will miss you.
What else is that supposed to mean? Look at this. In Ruin, Roxy can be seen in the jump scare if you zoom out, or see a video that zoomed out, smashing Cassie to the ground and biting her face. But she's just a little mad. While in Security Breach she was being told to attack his, she has the same strength. Before Gregory did anything to her, she was telling him that they were going to get rid of him and nobody was going to miss or find him. Before the apparent grudge about her eyes even happened. So Roxy's aggression just being because of Gregory's action is not the case. Also, if you look very closely at the shattered cutscene for Roxy, you realize that Gregory didn't intend on running her down. He's driving around when she jumps down in front of him, and Gregory swerves. He swerves, but he swerves too hard, and the cart starts to tumble over itself and hits Roxy, who is still standing there. Would Gregory have dealt with Roxy in another way if the cart hadn't hit her? Likely. But in this case, this was entirely an accident. But my point is, let's be honest with ourselves. If we replace Chica, Monty, and Roxy with the cast of Willy's Wonderland, would we be so quick to defend them? How's this any different than if Michael fought off the fun times? It's still a matter of life and death. And yes, I do think that the Glamrocks are victims of the situation, absolutely. They deserved better. But it wasn't on this kid, who they were chasing, to be the one to save them. Because I have recently seen comments about why he didn't use the Fazwrench to fix them, and that's a good point. But, in his defense, I didn't see any Fazwrenches in Security Breach. Freddy didn't offer one. Heck, Sun didn't even have a port for it. We can't take something that wasn't there and expect the character to use it. That'd be like if we said, well, why didn't the puppet, the protector of children, save the crying child from the bullies? Well, it wasn't there. Why didn't Michael save Charlie from his father? Well, as far as we know, he wasn't there. And neither was the Fazwrench. But do you know who could have and would have had a Fazwrench? Vanessa. And yes, we're moving on to Vanny. My issue with Vanessa is that all of the criticism levied against Gregory, a lot of it could also be levied against Vanessa once she was freed from Glitchtrap, but she tends to get off scot-free, despite being the adult. Maybe because she sounds so sad in her therapy tapes, it's easy to forget that she is the adult here, and had access to more options than he did. But that's not all. I also want to clear up one misconception that I've seen about Vanny's threat level. The idea I mentioned before about Gregory just hiding around the Pizzaplex and then leaving in the morning, that he didn't have to do anything about Vanny. Well, there's two things. First of all, no, Vanny would have followed him. Vanny pops up all throughout the night, we just don't see her because she's really easy to run past. But she is an actual threat, especially since Freddy can't see her through most of the game. And secondly, yes, Gregory could have left, but then Vanny would have just been killing more people. Vanessa was reluctant, but she still went along with it. And that's not saying it's her fault for being possessed and being forced to do it. I'm just saying she would have done it. She had no choice. Also, back to what I said earlier, Gregory saves Vanny and forgives Vanessa. He shows compassion even when Papa Bear suggests a more aggressive maneuver. I don't think we give Gregory enough credit for stopping Vanny. He stopped the biggest threat in the Pizzaplex, set Vanessa free, and showed her mercy in doing so. I don't think everyone would be so forgiving of this crazy waifu in a fursuit with daddy issues and occasionally a knife skipping around asking if they're having fun all the time. I think that covers Security Breach for the most part, so let's continue to the books. specifically Tales from the Pizzaplex and GGY. The story about Gregory being a teenager who is possessed by Glitchtrap and luring others to the Pizzaplex. Well, that's just kind of like the subplot, but still. Okay, let's start with a really quick disclaimer. There's not really much, if much, evidence for GGY and Security Breach. There is an Easter egg in the arcade cabinets, but for some reason, I haven't seen anyone else consider the possibility that the story might have been made off the Easter egg and not the other way around. After all, Security Breach came out in 2021, and GGY came out in 2023. Now, I personally think 2 years is a long time to reference some sort of major plot point, especially since those 2 years were filled with theories about Gregory being a robot who was controlled by Afton, and because we know that the books are all so very rushed. Tales from the Pizzaplex was, for years, taken as 100% canon to the franchise, but the thing is, it isn't. The whole Mimic plot, which consists of a couple of stories and the entire epilogue, is not the same as it was in the games. And this is very important, because Scott has a writing credit in Secret of the Mimic. He wrote at least some of the game, so we can assume that this is his chosen story. And I'm not saying that GGY isn't canon, but I am saying that there's a lot we don't know about it, and I don't necessarily think that the book details are entirely on point with the history. And to quickly get Patient 46 out of the way, something's sketchy there. He's also apparently a software programmer who might be working for them. I like to think of him and the mysterious tape girl working together in the same office. Who knows whatever happened to her? She's still probably possessed by Glitchtrap. But if Gregory was GGY in the games and not just a replacement for Vanny in the books, as Vanny doesn't appear in the books, then no, he is not accountable for the deaths caused at his hands. Like, we never hold Vanessa accountable for what Glitchtrap makes her do, but somehow Gregory is different. Why? Because in the book, he says that he's his apprentice? Well, Vanessa says, "It will be fun, I picked one out."
Don't worry. I'll be ready. And I won't let you down. It will be fun.
She picked out the kid she's going to target. She's extremely involved. She even designed and made a suit. But we know that it's all coerced. Not only is Vanessa being threatened, but Glitchtrap will just randomly overtake her body and make her do things. Are we to assume that he had a tight leash on this young woman, but not this kid? When he is so Afton adjacent, whether the real deal or a good fake, the kids would be his primary targets. Why would he choose a kid at all? Because he's good at hacking, apparently, because playing arcade games equates to hacking. Well, Vanessa is an IT specialist. You don't really need a hacker. Glitchtrap himself hacks things on the fly. So, not very necessary. If GGY is canon now, then Gregory was a puppet by Glitchtrap and can only be held accountable as much as Vanny was. But if this is another situation where the books and games are just kinda not the same, then that is also a possibility. And I say this because there was a video that did a really good job of covering why that might be the case, but I couldn't find it again. But if I remember or find them, I'll be sure to point you towards them. Also, I'm not talking about Escape from the Pizzaplex today because that book was... So I think I posted on this, but originally I pre-ordered Escape the Pizzaplex and planned to do a video on it. But then I saw the first reviews and backed out. But then later I got a chance to read it and I didn't really enjoy it. The thing about Escape the Pizzaplex, in a book where I feel like every character was kinda done real dirty, especially Cassie and Roxy, the biggest problem was how much this Choose Your Own Adventure book didn't feel like a Choose Your Own Adventure. It kind of felt like a paperback walking simulator, if that's a good way to put it. It's basically just a retread of Security Breach, but with Cassie and Roxy as the main characters, and Gregory replacing Vanny. And also, somehow it kind of breaks both Security Breach and Ruin storylines if it was canon. So moving back onto Ruin, where something happened that caused Gregory to go from disliked to becoming a very contentious character. But first, I've seen Gregory blamed for abandoning the animatronics in ruin. Nah, that is directly on Vanessa's shoulders. How is this singular kid supposed to fix, rehome, and protect a group of robots alone? Vanessa might have been able to do it. She's an IT technician. She's an adult. She's present. But she doesn't. And she's the one with the burden of fault. Because Gregory did manage to find a way to take Freddy, he didn't abandon the person who helped him, who was safe, who he could trust. But Vanessa abandons everyone, including the poor sucker who helps her get revenge on Glitchtrap and Help Wanted too. But that's less important though. The more important thing is what happens between Gregory and Cassie. So Gregory and Cassie are pretty good friends. We see a cutout that suggests that Gregory comforted Cassie during a trying time, and odds are that was during her birthday party at the Pizzaplex, where nobody showed up. Upon hearing that Gregory is trapped in the Pizzaplex, she drops everything to go find him, even when the place is collapsed. But it was not Gregory. It was the Mimic. You know who the Mimic is, I won't bore you. In one of the endings, Cassie escapes in an elevator, but oh no, Gregory can't let the Mimic get out.
Cassie, it's me. I think I need to explain a few things. You were never supposed to go to the Pizzaplex. That thing in the sinkhole tricked you. I really don't know what it is, but it's been trapped down here a really long time. The Mxes security program was designed to keep it hidden, but you shut down the security, and now it's free. It's not your fault. I know you did it for me, to save me, but we can't risk being followed. I'm sorry.
And thus he drops the elevator, knocking Cassie out and leaving her fate unknown, but probably to be followed up on later. How on earth did a kid who wasn't even at the Pizzaplex have the means to drop this elevator? Well, I'm sure that's not important. As is why he dropped the elevator when Mimic probably will just climb up the shaft anyways. That doesn't matter, I'm sure. But a lot of folks have hated Gregory for this decision, but let's play devil's advocate here. Now we know Gregory had a run-in with the Mimic. We know this for a few reasons. First of all, there's allusions to it in the Candy Cadet story about a mother who warned her son about a monster in the basement, who then mimics the mother's song to lure the boy in. And yes, that's very likely what happened. Both because Gregory's backpack and radio are located with the Mimic, and more importantly, the Mimic starts to mimic Gregory. The Mimic is somewhat compulsory, as we see in Secret of the Mimic. It takes on a personality and sticks with it. And it definitely encountered Gregory directly. And what's crazy is that the Mimic's gross lion amalgam suit may be its attempt to look like Gregory. The hair and the mane, the face, no muzzle, the bracelet and the Fazwrench. Yeah, it kinda locks in, and it makes sense to why the Mimic decided to destroy 3 old but intact suits to make one somewhat grotesque one. But yes, the point is that Gregory knows firsthand how dangerous the Mimic is. But Gregory acts like he doesn't know much about the Mimic or the Mxes, so likely someone else has. Maybe the friend he mentions. And this friend is likely an IT technician and former Vanny, Vanessa, as they are shown to be together in the Brazil ending where Cassie has a hallucination of them. Which would either mean that she's either met Vanessa, or that the Mimic in Mxes has seen them together and is projecting the hallucination, depending on who is controlling the image. She would be, likely, the would-be mother of the story. And if that's the case, then likely Vanessa has told Gregory how dangerous it is. And she would be the one to know, because as we recall, she was the one who was going down there. In case you didn't see this, down in the burn trap boss fight room, which isn't too far away from the Mimic, Vanny set up a cot for herself. So yeah, she was down there. She would know the Mimic is dangerous, and the Mimic is dangerous. Whether M1 or M2, the ruined Mimic can kill people easily. It can trick people easily too. Imagine this thing getting into Fall Fest in a clean suit. Not only could it stealth kill, it could probably run through and just start tearing people apart. Do bullets stop the Mimic? I don't think so. Not before it escapes. This thing is dangerous, and as awful as it is, I could see making the decision to choose protecting everyone over saving one. It makes sense that Gregory, someone who was willing to put himself aside to go stop Vanny from taking more kids, would choose to save everyone and drop the elevator. But Gregory didn't drop the elevator. And I'll explain why. And I don't think the voice file being labeled as Gregory in the files means anything for two reasons. One, it might have been a mistake. There were deleted lines and a deleted ending. Maybe things got mixed up. Or two, if this was going to be a mystery at all, then it could have not been called Grimmick, which was the Mimics lines, or the mystery would have been caught in 10 seconds. Steelwool is aware that theorists check file names because theorists caught Cassidy in Princess Quest to the point where her name was removed. Another option is that it was supposed to be Gregory at some point and they forgot to change it, but I don't think this is it. Or at least not currently. So who did drop the elevator? Well, I think there's a lot of evidence that it was, or was some form of, M1 from Secret of the Mimic, also known as the first Mimic or the Mxes. M1 was built to replicate Edwin's deceased wife Fiona. However, after his son died and the Mimic M2 went rogue, it split itself into two goals, containing the Mimic and protecting it and anyone else from it, and the bigger goal, reprogramming the Mimic to believe it is David. To do this, M1 manipulates Arnold, the protagonist of Secret of the Mimic, by faking the voice of the Fazwrench dispatch agent and misleading him into getting permissions, the Mimic's blueprint as well, and also in one ending playing a game that gets a glitched code that he can use to reprogram the Mimic with. M1 can fake voices, it will manipulate its targets, and is very closely connected with the Mimic. And if the Mxes box is the same, then is currently in the exact basement where they are. Just because Cassie shut down the program doesn't mean it shut down the entirety of that box. I believe M1 dropped the elevator. So what is the evidence for this? Well, first off, M1 is shown to do the same thing in Secret of the Mimic, as I said. It controls the building, as shown when it tries to stop Arnold when he escapes in the parachute ending. It is able to perfectly mimic voices, is very manipulative, and its main goal is to contain the Mimic. It wouldn't want it to escape. But also, M1 has also been shown to work with the Mimic, and wants it somewhat free so that it can progress in reformatting it to believe it is David. Its goals are mixed, but they align exactly with dropping the elevator with Cassie in it. Whereas Gregory wasn't even in the building. M1 would have been right there and wired up to flip the switch. Then there is the witch. In Help Wanted 2, Candy Cadet tells a story of a witch.
Now let me tell you a story about a young woman who, when she was little, was led into a dark forest by a witch, and almost eaten. She had fallen for the friendly voice without discernment, and was led astray. She had escaped before being thrown into the oven, but would have a scar for the rest of her life. When she had grown, she sought revenge on the witch, and entered the forest again willingly, this time with the confidence of age and experience. She was greeted at the mouth of the forest by a young boy who offered to help guide her through the darkness. She welcomed the help, and followed the young boy over the river, through the jagged trees, and toward a small house. "Come," the boy said. "Rest here before killing the witch." The young woman was tired, and would kill the witch in the morning. She followed the boy into the house. The oven door closed. The witch would finally have her meal.
Now, the witch has often been theorized to be Gregory, Vanny, Vanessa ad nauseum. But now with Secret of the Mimic out, it's more apparent that it is alluding to the Sun character that M1 takes on, both on her screens and in the Mimic.exe game, the programming game she uses to reprogram the Mimic. In Moon.exe, she is an old lady living in a house in the woods. She's a witch who burns a baby owl in an oven to make a mask to use. And Cassie would have avoided that oven, as per Candy Cadet's story, until the voice of a boy leads her right back in, and then the oven door slams shut, the witch pretending to be a boy. Fnaf Abyss prediction time. Cassie is stuck under the Pizzaplex. M1 pretends to befriend her and uses her, just like the mimic mimicked beforehand. And there you go, Cassie gets got by the witch. Done deal. New toy to get strung along by the manipulative programming bug. There's also the camera in the elevator with the yellow dot light that greatly resembles the one stuck to M1. Then there's the inflection of the voices. Listen, here's Gregory.
I've been trying to reach you all night. I'm not at the Pizzaplex. Something's trying to trick you.
Now here's Elevator Gregory.
I think I need to explain a few things. You were never supposed to go to the Pizzaplex. That thing in the sinkhole tricked you.
And here's Dispatch, aka M1, after the mask slips.
You have made your choice. You are not going to make it out of here alive. I thought you were different. I thought you might understand.
I'm almost out of power. You can still be useful. My communications with Edwin have been severed. Edwin abandoned us. He shut himself away in our home. Head to the main house and activate the communications sub-terminal.
Oh, and it's not your fault.
It's not your fault. It's not your fault.
It's not your fault. We love you.
But the biggest piece of evidence doesn't come from Secret of the Mimic. It comes from Ruin. It comes from Gregory's mouth.
I'm not at the Pizzaplex.
I really don't know what it is, but it's been trapped down here a really long time.
Down here? But Gregory, I thought you weren't at the Pizzaplex. Did you just happen to arrive there in the split second of interference on the radio?
My friend has access to the building maps. Just follow his instructions.
We know Gregory saying he's not at the Pizzaplex and that he's been trying to reach her isn't a lie, since there is a secret staff bot line where you can hear Gregory trying to contact Cassie. Which means that he is not at the Pizzaplex. And what backs this up is that, well, he's not. Grimmick is. Gregory is not in the basement, and down here wouldn't naturally slip out of someone's mouth unless they were, in fact, down there. It would be one thing if he said, Cassie, I'm not even here, I'm home. It's, I'm not at the Pizzaplex. He's not down here. And how is he supposed to control the Pizzaplex if he isn't? So, who is? Who is in the Pizzaplex? Who is trying to contain the Mimic? Who is trying to stop its escape? Who can mimic voices?
I know you did it for me. To save me. But
You are not going to make it out of here alive.
Well, it's not Gregory, that's for sure. But unfortunately, Cassie has no way of knowing that. And whatever is down there is surely going to be using that against her, i.e. the witch. Also, the generator for the elevator is sitting on the floor directly beside the Mimic. He might have done it himself. We know this guy has a really bitter streak.
Please, call for help. Oh, can't right now, buddy. We can do something fun tomorrow. I promise.
So with that out of the way, and Gregory cleared of all charges, he's off the hook, right? Well, no. Like I said, Gregory wasn't exactly liked way before Ruin came out. But why is this? Is it really because of the Glamrocks alone, if that's the only thing he really did? It's not just because of his attitude. Sure, it is abrasive, but really? I'm not saying it's always the Glamrocks, but there's certainly a lean towards that. Occam's razor, it's probably the Glamrocks. Because when it comes to the fan-favorite animatronics, who are more flashy characters than realistic depictions of grumpy humans, Gregory doesn't even compare. The Glamrocks are beloved, and for good reason. These are characters who have been neglected by Fazbear Entertainment, controlled by Vanny, and became unwilling accomplices in this giant murder factory known as the Pizzaplex. They were, at one time, friendly, loving mascots who children bonded with, and who did bond with children and remembered them. But things have changed. And despite this being all Glitch Trap and Vanny's fault, especially Glitch Trap, Gregory is the one who deals the final blow, so he looks worse for it, and then he doesn't feel too bad about it. But of course, because he's not the viewer, he doesn't have the same attachment as we do. He's had Roxy chase him and say horrendous things to him. Why would he feel bad for her? Because she cried? Oh, by the way, from the timing of Vanessa walking through Roxy's room before Gregory and Freddy did, very likely that she made Roxy cry. After all, she blamed Freddy for glitching out. She likely chewed out Roxy too, which is why she's crying about not being a loser. But the point is, I think most of Gregory's backlash comes from that. Of course, there's some for him being just like a kid character and some for him being in Security Breach, which was a divisive game, and I'm not ignoring those, but those aren't usually the opinions I've seen comments about. I think the easiest comparison is to Undertale, where the main character, Frisk, was, for a while at least, treated at best as a repentant sinner, and at worst a serial killer for fighting any of the monsters even though it was clearly in self-defense. I'm not talking about Genocide Run, and I don't mean everyone, of course. Basically putting the burden on the child to turn literal cheek when the adult figures around them get passes because they're quirky. Yes, the monsters had a bad past with humans, and I get that. But they are actually doing the same thing the humans did to Azrael. It's a long story, but consider his death the linchpin for the plot. And I think the game is aware of that. I'm pretty sure that's the point. I think this is supposed to be a plot element that both groups warred for so long, but at their core ended up doing the same thing. But that's not always the take I've seen when discussing Undertale. But another comparison to this would be how the fanbase portrayed the ghost children in fan works during the early start of Fnaf's popularity. Back in my day, the ghost children weren't the goody-goody gumdrops you think they were. They were all the one you shouldn't have killed. And none of this is like a call-out. I'm just saying at the time, having the ghost children be less the victims and instead like the victims and these angry souls screwing things up and wrongly accusing the protagonists for like hurt and comfort angsty means was a common occurrence. So these things happen sometimes. Now about the whole Gregory becoming a villain thing that I mentioned a long time ago. The reason why I brought that up is hilariously because a long time ago I did a Defense of Gregory video, and during it I made an unintentional prediction. I mentioned, for some reason, that FNAF's fanon often affects its characters, like how William Afton was so popular that he became the main focus and still kind of is in some regards. He's basically the face and main lead even when he's dead. And lo and behold, after maybe completely on coincidence, but after Gregory's poor reception, he has been made into this sort of scapegoat. We have GGY having him as this mastermind accomplice to Glitch Trap, better than even Vanny. We have Ruin having him be the one to drop the elevator, allegedly. And we have Escape the Pizzaplex turn him into William Afton, like he starts pulling deranged tricks straight out of Afton's playbook. By the way, Gregory becoming the new Afton was another thing I predicted in my salty ramblings, so if that ends up happening, I'm gonna take credit for it. But every time Gregory shows up, he's been something of the bad guy, while poor little Vanessa gets skirted off to the side to eat ice cream and deal with no repercussions. Want to add here, the reason I keep bringing up Vanny and Vanessa is not because I dislike Vanny or Vanessa, it's because I think it shows a clear dichotomy there, where Vanny and Vanessa gets more of the treatment that Gregory should probably get, because they are both victims, but only one of the characters really gets a shield. And the protagonist who replaces Gregory, Cassie, is good, but is a little too good to be true. That she is basically the perfected Gregory, going out of her way to be especially nice to the Glamrocks, even the ones trying to kill her, except Monty, and being otherwise a lot more likable, with her only flaw being a little whininess at times, which is totally reasonable. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Cassie, but I am saying that I think some of these decisions were inspired by Gregory's reception. And I know that because Roxy and Eclipse having such big roles was definitely due to their popularity. Still crossing my fingers that Eclipse shows up during Abyss. But back to Gregory, look at it from his point of view. You're a child who's being chased by a sketchy night guard who acts like this.
Come on out, you little monster. Why, you little brat. Ugh, I hate kids.
And your only helper is Freddy, who starts off totally oblivious to the danger and keeps sending you into random places where you get ambushed. And whenever you call for help, he's either fallen and he can't get up, or he just zooms past you. Then you have 3 robots chasing you, one of them who smells like garbage, one of them has a clear temper problem, and one who is insulting you, and all 3 are relentlessly pursuing you. Then you have this flip-flopping jester who wants to put you down for a dirt nap. People are disappearing left and right, and you know you're next if you don't do something, but you have no weapons, no tools, no clue, and hours to stay alive. The whole world is against you. Fighting back is your only option, or you're going to be just like all of the other nameless missing kids who disappear in Freddy's and never go home again. You are just the newest target. And keep that in mind. Think about Gregory's situation. In a lot of his decisions, there were no other choice. There wasn't a pacifist route. The closest thing would have been to hand himself over, or to lay down and die. Desperate times call for desperate measures. And if it was Michael Afton or Charlie Emily fighting for their lives, I would give them a full pass for trying to survive. And Gregory is no different. And GGY doesn't change this, because Gregory would have had to have some sort of amnesia or something since he seems to have no recollection of any of it. Meaning we can't pin that against him. Is Gregory perfect? Of course not. And like I said, if you don't like him because he does act so rough around the edges, that's absolutely valid. He is, at his core, just a character. He's not a real person. But as for him being the one who's at fault, or the only one who's at fault, I disagree, and I hope you can see why too. It's a much more complicated situation than just he broke the Glamrocks and he shouldn't have. There's so many more details that play into this. He's not a monster. Well, until Fnaf Abyss comes out and reveals Gregory as the second coming of Afton, and then the next game following it ages him up to be in his 20s, and a security guard who goes by David or something. And now, the video can't age like milk when that happens. But I hope I could show you the other side of Gregory. The one that saved Vanny, that didn't run away and matured enough to try and do the right thing. And in the world of Five Nights at Freddy's, it's about time we had more characters doing that. And it looks like we are. Anywho, thank you for watching.